V Sports present from the National Hot Rod Association Championship Drag Racing, the NHRA Quaker State Northstar Nationals. Speeds in excess of 275 miles an hour, covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 6 seconds. Drag racing from the NHRA. The championship trail of NHRA drag racing crisscrosses the United States and Canada, stopping in 14 major event locations throughout the year. Today, we are in Brainerd, Minnesota, about 3 hours drive north of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis-St. Paul. The state slogan, Land of 10,000 Lakes, is most evident in the tranquil area around Brainerd. Carved out of the wooded countryside, Brainerd International Raceway plays host to a number of major motorsports events on both its drag strip and world-renowned road course. 1 year ago, Big Daddy Don Garlits took another step forward in his successful quest of the NHRA World Championship title when he won the Top Fuel event at the Northstar Nationals. His competition was to have been Dick LaHaye, but mechanical problems kept LaHaye away, and Garlits made an easy single for the win. As one of drag racing's most durable and popular stars, Tom McClelland won his second race of 1986 when he prevailed in the final round at the Northstar Nationals. Racing against Ed McCulloch, McClelland in the near lane easily outdistanced his rival for the championship. The race at Brainerd a year ago was another mark in the win column of the Pro Stock champion. Bob Glidden, on his way to an unprecedented 7th World Championship, put his Ford Thunderbird on the line against Bruce Allen's Chevy Camaro. The outcome was obvious from the start. Glidden the winner, and eventually the world champion. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland. A huge crowd is jammed into Brainerd International Raceway for the 6th annual Quaker State Northstar Nationals. A longtime Top Fuel veteran has debuted his new car. For the details, here's Steve Evans.
Dave, the rumors that Big Daddy Don Garlits might finally debut his brand new Swamp Rat 31 here at Brainerd proved to be true. And here it is in all its splendor. Now, at first examination, it looks a lot like Swamp Rat 30 that was recently retired to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Closer examination, though, there are some aerodynamic differences. You see these vents here. They're on either side. They help evacuate air from under the front end, ground effects, if you will, creating some downforce to help keep the front tires on the pavement. There's also a lower body lip for the same reason, to create a certain amount of downforce. Now, back here, just forward of the cockpit, Don has finally installed an onboard computer. He calls it Michael, just because he likes its name. And so far, he and Michael have a good relationship. He says he is learning a lot. Now, the rest of the changes are pretty subtle. The engine is located a bit differently, and the chassis has some tubes that weren't in the old car, but you can't really see those. Unfortunately for Don, in round number 1, he was disappointed. He faced off with his rival from Florida, Darrell Gwynn. They both left the starting line very hard. About 100 feet out, the new car blazed the tires. Well, Don Garlits had hoped to be able to put a few more laps in this car, not only to win a few more rounds, but also to get it sorted out for the races to come, but it just blazed the tires.
Yeah, it needs more clutch.
Needs more clutch. Usually when they smoke the tires.
I know, it needs more clutch. That's the only thing we know is more clutch.
To get it to launch harder, quicker?
Launch harder. We got to get the reaction time down. We got to get the 60-foot time down. Needs more clutch.
Did you get enough evaluation on this car to know whether you're pleased with it as it sits?
I'm very pleased with the car. I mean, the computer's giving me all kinds of information. And I'm getting the engine to come around. I mean, it's got some power now.
Sorry to see you out, Ramon.
Yeah, the way it goes.
For those of you who may not be aware of the subtlety of Don Garlits, he was kidding about more clutch. The car had enough to rotate the earth. The real story in round number 1 earlier today, the number of upsets. First of all, it was Gary Ormsby, the low qualifier, new track record holder. He fell to Shirley Muldowney, the pink car victorious, 5:42, her best performance of this event. But the big upset concerned Joe Amato. Leading the Winston World Championship points chase, he's won 2 events, has not been eliminated earlier than the semis. Well, in round number 1, he lost by 1/100th of a second, a 5:34 to a 5:35. The win light went to Gene Snow. I talked to Joe about it. Joe, Joe Amato, you know, after what I saw in the first round, that bike is the only thing you're going to be riding in the rest of the day.
Yeah, it wasn't too fun, Steve, losing like that. You know, Gene Snow kind of laid one on us, you know, 5:34 to a 5:35. That was a good race, but no fun for the points, you know.
First time you've gone out in the initial round this season, and it couldn't have happened really at a worse time because you're getting pressure from LaHaye and Glenn for that matter.
First time in here, actually. It was this race last year we lost first round, so I guess this place hasn't been lucky for us.
And as I remember last year, you threw the car away after it did that.
Yeah, we're not going to throw this one away. This car has World Championship written on it. Hopefully we can regroup from this race and come on for the next 5 or 6 races and do better.
Well, Joe Amato hoped that the upsets continued in round number 1, particularly when it came to Dick LaHaye, but that was not to be. Not only did Dick LaHaye win, but he set the all-time track record at 5.22 seconds, and he knows he can seize on an opportunity today. You want to see the face of a happy man? Not only did Joe Amato, who's leading the points, go out round 1, but now Dick LaHaye has posted low elapsed time, 5:22.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, we came in here with a brand new engine, and you know, we've got our record-holding engine in the trailer for a spare, and it run 5:17. We've got another one that run 2 5:24s, and now we've got this one that just run 5:22 in top speed. And this year is just out of control. I don't know any other way to explain it.
This is the opportunity you've needed to get Amato out early.
Well, you know, we didn't qualify number 1 here, and we had some strategy that we could reach him in the semifinal round. And as it turned out, we're not going to meet him in the semifinal, so I guess it's our chance to make a move on this thing.
It is indeed. See you round 2.
Thank you, Steve.
Funny car round 1 was just the opposite of Top Fuel. No upsets there. All the quick guys survived. Kenny Bernstein, Mark Oswald, John Forrest, Billy Meyer. They'll all see action in round 2 today. Pro stock, well, the Bob Glidden rampage continues. His Ford Thunderbird, a brand new track record, 7:49, and he got to arch rival Butchville in the first round, putting that Pontiac away.
After threatening skies earlier today, the sun is breaking through the clouds, making for a beautiful racing day as we join the action in round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator. 3-time world champion, Shirley Muldowney. Shirley sorting out her difficulties after a slow start earlier this season, paired against Frank Bradley. 2 veteran drivers, neither in the winner's circle for several years. The win advantage going to Shirley by a wide margin. She has a total of 17 victories to her credit. Bradley has 2. Bradley, driving the Newman Farm Specials, made it to the final round earlier this season at the Mile High Nationals in Denver. Shirley, at the wheel of the Performance Automotive Wholesale car, was last in the winner's circle at the 1983 World Finals. The burnouts completed. Now, both Bradley and Muldowney concentrating on the start. With only a quarter of a mile of racing distance, there is little or no margin for mistakes. Both drivers will be trying to gain whatever advantage possible off the starting line. The 2 cars approaching the line. Invisible infrared light beams stretch across the track, and as the front wheels roll into those beams, signal lights at the top of the starting device, the Christmas tree, are lit. The final move forward. Both cars are into the staged and ready position. Starter Buster Couch sends them on their way. Bradley with a bit of an advantage. It's Shirley Muldowney drives around him at the finish line to win the race. Shirley Muldowney defeating Frank Bradley. Let's look again in slow motion. Off the starting line, Bradley has the advantage. He continues to extend that lead and holds it at half track. But then the power of Shirley Muldowney's car begins to make the difference, and that difference was proven at the finish line.
Shirley Muldowney goes to the semifinals, and you're going to like these numbers, a 5:38.270.
Wow, I'm excited about that, 270. I think the people like to see 70s.
You know, you were in that lane that some people didn't have a lot of confidence in. Your guys had it just right.
We wanted the right lane. We think it's good. You know, well, I think both lanes are good, but right lane was obviously a little better. I was going to shift it a little sooner, and then he kind of walked up on me, and I think I better leave it in there a little bit longer.
The Quaker State Northstar Nationals brought to you by Goodyear. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, no matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by Fram Bendix Auto Life, which are all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer. Dan Pastorini up next as Top Fuel continues. At the Quaker State Northstar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway, there's lots of action going on, and there's lots of action on Gull Lake, too, as evidenced by this boatload enjoying a beautiful sunshiny afternoon. At the racetrack, the thunder of the nitro-burning Top Fuel dragsters resounds over the countryside as Dan Pastorini set to do his burnout. In the midst of his second full season of championship drag racing, the former NFL quarterback Dan Pastorini drives the Coors Light Silver Bullet. He defeated Larry Minor in the first round of competition. He is racing against Gene Snow of Fort Worth, Texas at the wheel of the Snow Oil Company car, and you saw him beat Joe Amato in the first round. Pastorini has adapted very well to the sport of championship drag racing, but he's given away a lot of years of experience here on the starting line to Snow. Snow's career dates back into the early 60s. He's got multiple national event wins to his credit, both in Top Fuel and in Funny Car. Both drivers staging very carefully. They don't want a red light. They don't want to leave too soon. And it's a good start. The blower belt comes off of Gene Snow's car, and Pastorini through the finish line at a 5:58, but the smoke coming out of it indicates he may have hurt the motor. You can see a trail of oil coming out the back of the engine on Dan Pastorini's car. This is Eddie Hill from Wichita Falls, Texas, behind that transparent canopy that covers the full cockpit on Hill's car. The canopy serves basically two purposes. One, it provides some very important aerodynamic streamlining, and secondly, it helps protect the driver from the buffeting that goes on at over 270 miles an hour. This is Dick LaHaye, one of the hottest drivers on the circuit today. Steve?
Well, normally you're pretty happy when you get a win light in this kind of competition, but if you're Dan Pastorini, all that oil on the motor tempers that excitement because you know there's an awful lot of work to do and something's wrong inside. Dan, you won it, but boy, the crew's got work to do.
Yes, it was costly, that's for sure. We hung the rods out of it, and it just, we got one more bullet left, so we'll figure out something. We'll just pull this one out and try some of that new stuff and hope it works.
Yeah, I hope it does for you. We'll be by his pit. You can be rest assured there'll be an engine change there.
Steve, the Pastorini crew, headed by Jim Brissett, will be hard at work in just a very few moments changing that engine. Dick LaHaye from Lansing, Michigan, driving the Miller American Racing Special, defeated Glenn Micros in the first round with that fine 5:22. He is racing against the Texan Eddie Hill, who beat Richard Holcomb. An independent racer, Hill dates back to the earliest days of Top Fuel racing. He laid out for over a decade going drag boat racing, but a couple of seasons ago came back to the asphalt sport and has been in the thick of the chase ever since. LaHaye in the near lane, Hill in the far lane. A good close race, and something goes wrong with Hill. LaHaye bolts across the finish line with a brilliant 5:23 at only 267 miles an hour. That advances LaHaye into the semifinals. This is Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn out of Miami, Florida, one of the young stars of this sport, finished number 2 in the world last season to the reigning world champ Don Garlits. Gwynn is racing against Mike Brotherton of Tulsa, Oklahoma, another relatively new racer to the sport of Top Fuel competition. Brotherton debuting his car about a year ago. Steve's at the far end of the track with Dick LaHaye.
Well, this man's day just gets better and better. He has top speed, low ET of the event, and another 5:23 takes you to the finals. Or semifinals, let's put it that way.
Hey, we'll take it. It spun the tires pretty hard out there. We thought Larry come around and he said, you know, there's a possibility you could hit the national record here and pick up another 200 points. And I thought, well, you know, let's just see what it'll do. And it's running very consistent. I think we better stay with that right there, Steve.
Like Eddie Hill, Mike Brotherton is an independent racer in this highly competitive and expensive form of motorsport. He beat John Kerry in the first round. Darrell Gwynn, driving the Budweiser Quaker State Special, as we saw, defeated Don Garlits in round number 1. Gwynn ended last season with the honor of being the quickest driver in the history of drag racing. Well, progress continues, and that has now been surpassed. Dick LaHaye holds the honor at the moment. Gwynn has had some problems early this season and has been trying a number of different combinations. Gwynn in the near lane, Brotherton in the far lane. A big advantage for Darrell off the starting line. And at the finish, he's got a big win. Darrell with an elapsed time of 5.35 seconds. His speed, 266 miles an hour. This sets up our semifinal pairings. Darrell Gwynn against Shirley Muldowney, and by virtue of a quicker elapsed time in that round, Gwynn has the lane choice. Dick LaHaye will be going against Dan Pastorini. LaHaye having the lane choice in that pair. On the starting line, the factory hot rods, Pro Stock Eliminator doing their burnout. This is the first time we've had a chance to see this car, the brand new Chevrolet Beretta out of the Levi Garrett sponsorship, driven by Bruce Allen. Allen defeated Don Kuntz in the first round. He's racing here against Tony Christian at the wheel of the Volante and Earl Pontiac Firebird. These Pro Stock drivers give the Christmas tree a workout. Remember, you can beat yourself on the starting line if you leave before the green light comes on. You leave too soon, you get the red light indicating disqualification. A good start for both Christian and Allen. And the Beretta to another round win, 7.53 seconds. His speed, 183 miles an hour. As we take a second look, you can see the advantage off the starting line went to Tony Christian. But very quickly, the Chevy Beretta out of the Rare and Morrison team from Arlington, Texas, began to make its power and started the march for the finish line. The racing distance on a championship drag racing track is only 1,320 feet, and it can go by very quickly. For Bruce Allen, the finish line came up as he was more than a car length ahead. Back at the starting line, our next pair getting ready to go. The Pontiac Firebird out of Indianapolis, Indiana, independent racer Steve Schmidt defeated Joe Lapone in the Chevy Beretta in the first round, while his competition, Warren Johnson, drove his Mr. Goodwrench Oldsmobile Forenza to a victory over Gary Brown. Both cars set. And a red light for Steve Schmidt. He tried too hard and anticipated the green light. He left way too soon, and the win automatically going to Warren Johnson. His elapsed time, 7.58 seconds. That Oldsmobile ran 183 miles an hour. One of the most popular racers of all time, Shirley Muldowney has a special treat for Holly, her own autographed T-shirt. The crew is working on Shirley's car. We'll be coming right back to Brainerd International Raceway with more Pro Stock racing at the Quaker State Northstar. At the Quaker State Northstar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway, we're in round number 2 of Pro Stock racing. Here is Jerry Ekman. He won his first ever NHRA National Event title earlier this season when he won the Summer Nationals crown. He is racing against Nick Nicholas. It is a Pontiac against a Chevrolet. Both of these drivers are independent racers. Nick Nicholas hails from Jackson Heights, New York. He defeated Larry Morgan in the first round of racing. Jerry Ekman comes from Ventura, California. He defeated Lee Dean in his first round matchup. Ekman and his partner Bill Orndorff have qualified very well at many events thus far this season, indicating to the racing world they are certainly a force to be reckoned with in Pro Stock. Both drivers taking their time about staging, a bit of a psychological battle going on. You hear lots of RPM, starter Buster Couch waving Nick Nicholas into the beams, and it pays off for Nicholas with a hole shot. He got the advantage off the starting line. Ekman tries to come back. He cannot do it. Nicholas with the upset. 7.67 seconds, the winning time. The losing time was even quicker at a 7.58 seconds. This is a graphic example of how a good driving job, taking advantage of every opportunity, can outrun a better running car. Nick Nicholas in the near lane got a 1/10 of a second advantage off the starting line. He held on for the win over Jerry Ekman. Nicholas heads to the semifinals. Our next pair of cars, the classic Chevrolet versus Ford matchup. The Camaro, driven by Darrell Alderman, will be racing against the world champion Bob Glidden at the wheel of his Ford Thunderbird. Alderman, driving the Wayne County Speed Shop car, defeated Reed Wisnett in the first round of racing. While, as we saw at the top of the show, Bob Glidden, driving the Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird, defeated Butch Leal. Glidden in the far lane, Alderman in the near lane. Both cars powered by 500 cubic inch engines. Minimum weight for both cars, 2,350 pounds, including the driver. A good start, a slight advantage going to Alderman. But the Ford's got some horsepower. And it pays off at the finish. Glidden, quickest elapsed time of eliminations, 7.47 seconds at over 185. That sets up our semifinal pairing of Bob Glidden against Warren Johnson. Glidden, by virtue of that elapsed time, having the lane choice. The other pair, Nick Nicholas, will be going against Bruce Allen, and Allen has the lane choice in that race. That brings us to Funny Car. On the starting line, the world champion, Kenny Bernstein. In the first round of racing, Bernstein, driving the Budweiser King, defeated the Australian Graham Cowan. While his competition at the wheel of the Miller American Special, Ed McCulloch, defeated the defending champ, Tom McEwen. Using a drivetrain similar to those in the top fuel dragsters, the funny cars of modern-day championship drag racing have over 2,500 horsepower on tap under the fiberglass replica bodies of late model automobiles. An Oldsmobile Forenza in the near lane, a Buick LeSabre in the far lane. These tubular chassis cars weigh about 1,900 pounds each and are capable of speeds over 270 miles an hour in the quarter. McCulloch smokes the tires. Bernstein's away. And Bernstein with an easy victory. His elapsed time, 5.57 seconds. His speed over 265 miles an hour. That advances him to the semifinals. In the top fuel pit area, there's one driver that believes in personal attention. Dick LaHaye, under the direction of his daughter Kim, who serves as crew chief on this race car, is checking out his engine.
Kenny Bernstein has 3,000 horses under the hood. And Autolite spark plugs to make sure those horses fly. Kenny's crew chief, Dale Armstrong, always uses Autolite because they're durable and have copper in the seal. Autolite, the only plugs with a 2-year unlimited mileage guarantee. When Kenny's running for a championship, he knows what plugs will get him there.
Brainerd International Raceway, the Quaker State Northstar Nationals. We're in round number 2 of Funny Car Eliminator. The number 1 qualifier at this event was Mark Oswald at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes Ford T-Bird. He had a mark of 5.50 seconds. Oswald has been in the winner's circle at this Northstar Nationals event before. Back in 1984, when he won the World Championship crown, Oswald was the funny car champion. He is racing against John Force. Driving the Castrol GTX-sponsored Oldsmobile, John Force won his first ever NHRA National Event title, the Grand Nationals, earlier this year. Oswald, at the wheel of the Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird, has yet to win a major event this season. Finished runner-up to Kenny Bernstein at the Summer Nationals earlier this year. Both cars are crew chiefed by longtime veterans in this sport. Leonard Hughes for Mark Oswald. Austin Coyle turning the wrenches for John Force. A close race until Force moves ahead. Force with a strong charge at the finish line. A great elapsed time, 5.59 seconds. His speed, 261 miles an hour. On the starting line, the veteran Don Prudhomme at the wheel of his Pontiac Trans Am Firebird. The burnout procedure performed by all drivers, designed to get the tires as hot as they can and as clean as possible. This is Jim White. He'll be racing against Don Prudhomme. Steve?
John Force continues at blistering pace of 5:59.
Well, she's consistent. Coyle's got her right on, and Oswald's one of the guys just like Bernstein. You got to get out early in this race, and he was right out the window, but we took him out. It was great.
Looked like you had to steer the car pretty good.
She was heading toward the center line. I said, oh, here goes the ball game, but she set down just a shade, and that's it.
See you later.
John Force, the best interview in drag racing, even if you don't know what he's talking about. Here's Jim White at the wheel of the Mohawk Express out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, racing against Don Prudhomme at the wheel of the Skoal Bandit. Prudhomme in his first round race beat Bruce Larson, while Jim White had one of the big upsets. He defeated Raymond Beadle. Prudhomme had laid out of the sport for a year, coming back at the start of this season, and he's already won one event, the Gator National. Now racing against Jim White, it's Prudhomme in the near lane. And White's got a great start. But lots of horsepower for Prudhomme. 5.66 seconds. His speed over 255 miles an hour, and that propels him forward another round into the semifinals of the Northstar National. This is Billy Meyer, owner of the Texas Motorplex near Dallas, the site of the upcoming Chief Nationals. You'll be seeing full coverage of that event right here on ESPN. Meyer is racing against John Martin, a Californian that does not devote his full time to the sport of drag racing. He owns a heating and air conditioning company, and the name of his car, the Jam Air Special, is a contraction of that air conditioning business and his name, John A. Martin, hence the Jam Air Special. Meyer drives an Oldsmobile Forenza-bodied car. He has the sponsorship of the folks at Chief Auto Parts. In round number 1, Meyer defeated Jim Head, while John Martin defeated Darrell Amberson. This has been the best season that Martin has enjoyed in the sport of drag racing for a number of years. He has qualified at several events, going to the semifinals at the season's starting Winter National. Meyer in the far lane, Martin in the near lane. Meyer begins to smoke the tires. Martin crosses the center line. Billy Meyer was the automatic winner at that point when Martin went across the center line. He did not back out of it, though. 5.74 seconds. His speed over 257 miles an hour. The semifinal pairings, Billy Meyer against John Force. Force has lane choice with that brilliant 5.59. And Kenny Bernstein will be racing Don Prudhomme. Bernstein having the lane choice in that pair. On the starting line, Dick LaHaye talking with his daughter and crew chief, Kim, about the upcoming semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator. At Brainerd International Raceway near Brainerd, Minnesota, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans. At the Quaker State Northstar Nationals, we're in John Force pit area. The work underway preparing this car for the semifinal round of competition. On the starting line, the engines are already running in our Top Fuel dragsters as Dick LaHaye will race against Dan Pastorini. As we have seen, LaHaye and crew had the mechanical work well in hand, but a lot of work had to be performed on the Dan Pastorini car. As you recall, in round number 2 racing, Pastorini had lots of problems. That carried over into the necessary work between rounds in the pit area, and a valiant effort was made to get this car in competition.
Well, there you see the reason why an engine change is going on in Dan Pastorini's pits. A huge hole in the side of that aluminum block, a connecting rod broke, and that's the kind of damage it creates. And this is crew chief Jim Brissett. And Jim, the engine you're putting in, tell us about that.
Well, it's a different stroke combination. We've been trying a larger motor, a larger stroke, but we haven't had too much success with it, as you can see. So we're going back to our old combination.
A combination you know well.
Well, it runs usually in the 30s, which is what we need now, Even though LaHaye's run a little quicker, at least we have some sort of a chance,
Sure is a glamorous business, isn't it?
Yes, you know that.
It's a lot of hard work is what it is. So there goes another $25,000 engine in the frame rails of Dan Pastorini's car.
That hard work is paid off thus far. It has gotten Pastorini at least to the starting line to race against Dick LaHaye. Jim Brissett on the Pastorini car making the final adjustments. LaHaye comes into the staging beams. Now Pastorini staged. And LaHaye loses traction. A huge cloud of smoke coming up off the tires. Pastorini across the finish line. Smoke out of the engine. Possible damage again, but it doesn't matter. Dan Pastorini has advanced to the final round, and Dick LaHaye is out of competition. As we look again, you see LaHaye leave the starting line. The tires instantly lose traction, going up in that cloud of smoke. LaHaye lost the race.
You know, Dan Pastorini, if you want a good Italian meal, I think I know where you could get one in Pennsylvania at the Amato household for ridding him of Dick LaHaye. Nice job.
Thank you. I'll tell you, we heard 2 motors today, and these guys did a heck of a job. We didn't even run this motor before. We got new heads on it. We had no idea where we were. And it just, we're still off a bunch on it, but to have the first run like that and run a 59, I'm really pleased with it. And we didn't hurt anything. We just got some oil blow by, but they'll get it running.
While Pastorini heads into the finals, Don Garlits heads home with his brand new Swamp Rat 31. Very enthused about the performance thus far of this car, looking ahead to great things the remainder of the season. Here is Shirley Muldowney enjoying one of her best days thus far this season. She's in the semifinals, and her car has been running in the 5:30s elapsed time bracket. She'll be needing all of that performance, though, as her competitor is one of the toughest in the sport, 25-year-old Darrell Gwynn. But again, as we saw, he experienced some engine problems in the second round, adding to the workload of his crew.
All right, here's the damage control report from the Darrell Gwynn pits, and actually things look pretty good. Here's the pistons. They take them out after every run. Now, 7 of these will live to fight again. They're just fine. You see the empty hole there? Well, that rod is in the trailer being fitted with a new piston because one of the rings is tight. Unlike this, the piston got just a little bit too much heat. But all in all, that's pretty good. Some bearings, 3 of those will be replaced, and that's not unusual. One thing they are doing is fitting brand new tires to the automobile. The tires that were on it were pretty good. They had 4 runs on them. That's all Darrell likes to utilize his tires. He then sells them to an alcohol dragster or funny car who gets a good bargain, and Darrell goes in with fresh rubber every 4 runs down the quarter mile. All in all, about as good as one of these cars can look, considering the stress and strain of competition here.
The stress and the strain at this Quaker State Northstar Nationals is beginning to show on every racer. Shirley Muldowney, elapsed times in the 5:30s. Darrell Gwynn, his elapsed times in the 5:30s. This could be one of the closest races of the day based on previous performances. Both cars staging very carefully, as we have seen. That start is all important regardless of the category of car. Here you're dealing with engines making 2,500 horsepower or more. And a great race. Oh, so close at the finish. It is Darrell Gwynn moving into the finals to race against Dan Pastorini. 5.39 seconds, 264 miles an hour. Falling off the pace just a little bit. Shirley Muldowney appears in our replay to be experiencing some slight engine problems as she approaches the finish line. That let Gwynn get by for the win.
Well, Shirley, you know, that was just a good old-fashioned drag race. He ran a 39, you ran a 44.
He runs good. I thought it looks like it might have got a little hot there coming into the lights, and I knew he was there, and that's a good car, but this is also a good car. I'll get him.
You know, you ran with the pace of the leaders here this weekend, strong.
Yeah, and I left on everybody, and that makes me feel good.
Indeed. Okay, Shirley Muldowney.
That sets the stage for the Top Fuel final at the Quaker State Northstar Nationals. Dan Pastorini will be racing Darrell Gwynn, and by virtue of the lower elapsed time in the semifinals, Gwynn has the lane choice. On the starting line, the concentration showing in the eyes of Billy Meyer as he gets ready for the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator.
This quick fact is brought to you by Quaker State.
When winter comes to your neighborhood, you'll want to treat your car like your pet. You don't want it to get too cold, so don't park your car facing the wind. You don't want the cold air entering through your radiator, making the engine even colder. On those extreme cold nights, you might want to put a light under the hood to keep your engine warm. Or you can buy a dipstick that also serves as an engine warmer. Some preventative maintenance might help your car start on those real cold mornings.
This is one of the most unusual schools around, a school for drag racing. And Frank Hawley, who runs it, pushes drivers and cars to the limit. That's why he uses parts that can take a lot of pressure, like Fram oil filters. He knows with a cheap brand there could be problems, like leaking gaskets and maybe even big engine trouble. So Frank thinks it's worth paying a little more for a Fram oil filter. After all, isn't it better to spend a little now instead of a lot later?
There's lots of action on and off the track at the Quaker State Northstar Nationals. You're looking at Dan Pastorini's pit area. This is what they call normal maintenance. Taking an engine apart, checking it, making sure it's all okay before he comes to the starting line to race Darrell Gwynn in the Top Fuel final. Here's the semifinal of Funny Car Eliminator. It is John Force in the far lane against Billy Meyer in the near lane. Meyer's competition is quite a story. John Force started as a truck driver, decided he wanted to go drag racing. He has been ultimately successful. He has been to the final round of NHRA national events 11 times. Consider the number of racers that never make it past the first round, and you'll see why the perseverance of John Force has allowed this former truck driver to realize his dreams in championship drag racing. Both cars are ready. A good start. Force has got the lead. And Force once again goes into the finals. Another great elapsed time, 5.59 seconds. His speed over 257 miles an hour. Force's car smoking just a bit as it gets ready to turn off the racetrack. Now, Kenny Bernstein taking the lane the furthest from the camera. He had the lane choice by virtue of his elapsed time. His crew chief, Dale Armstrong, out to direct traffic after the burnout. The veteran Don Prudhomme, the winningest nitro-burning driver in the history of the sport. 35 wins to his credit in both funny car and top fuel racing. 4 times, Don Prudhomme was the world champion in funny car eliminator. One of these 2 racers will match against John Force in the funny car finals. Force is with Steve at the end of the track.
John, a brilliant job of driving. I could hear you pedaling the car. The front end was up. You settled it down. I imagine you had a hold of the brake. I don't know what all you were doing, but a 5:59.
Quite a job, huh?
Indeed.
Well, I tell you what, my whole life I dreamed of this deal here. I love Kenny Bernstein. I want to see Prudhomme beat him because I want to beat the Snake in the final. And if I don't get him, I'll take Bernstein. But I really want to beat Don Prudhomme. He's my hero.
Either way, it's going to be fun when John Force is involved.
Steve, absolutely incredible, the words from John Force. Prudhomme in the near lane, Bernstein in the far lane. Neither driver thinking of John Force at this very moment. The important thing here is to win this race. A great start. Look at Bernstein. Easily outdistancing Prudhomme with the quickest elapsed time of funny car racing. 5.54 seconds. His speed, 265 miles an hour. That sets up our funny car final, and that great elapsed time gives Kenny Bernstein the choice of lanes as he races John Force for the title at the Quaker State Northstar National. In Darrell Gwynn's pit area, an engine change is taking place as they get that car ready to go against Dan Pastorini. Let's check in with Steve and Kenny Bernstein.
Kenny Bernstein, once again, headed into the final round. And good news, you have lane choice of 5:54 to his 59.
Oh, boy, that's a good run. Dale and the guys did a super job. But John Force is a handful, and it's going to take everything we can do to get the Budweiser Buick Quaker State car to get there, I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you, the way Force is running his consistency, Dale and the guys better have their act together.
Well, that's what it takes. You know, it's day in and day out, run after run, and they have for the last 4 or 5 races, so it's not going to be easy. It'll be tough.
Lane choice a big deal?
I think so, but actually both lanes look pretty good. We got the sun out again, but you always like to have it in case someone oils it down in front of you, so it's not a bad thing to have.
Should be a great final.
You bet. Thank you.
Back in a moment to the Quaker Star Nationals for the semifinals of Pro Stock Eliminator. Another engine change taking place as John Force replaces the racing motor under the fiberglass body as he gets his car ready for the final round appearance against Kenny Bernstein. On the track, it is the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Pontiac versus Chevrolet. In the lane furthest from the camera, the new Chevy Beretta, the Rare and Morrison team out of Arlington, Texas. The car driven by Bruce Allen. In the lane nearest the camera, the Pontiac Firebird, the Trans Am of Nick Nicholas from New York State. It was a long, dry spell for Chevrolet in the winner's circle of Pro Stock Eliminator until that was broken by Jerry Ekman at the recent Summer Nationals when he defeated Bruce Allen for the title. Allen at that time was driving the previous Chevy Camaro of the Rare and Morrison team. Now they've gone through their sorting out process on this new Beretta, and it is Nick Nicholas attempting to stop him here in the semifinals. The burnouts are over for both drivers, and now, with their hands on the shifting levers of the 4-speed planetary-type transmissions, both drivers approach the starting line for the staging procedures, trying to gain that all-important advantage right at the start that may give them the win at the finish line. Nicholas in the near lane, Allen in the far lane, and a great hole shot for Allen. Way ahead of Nicholas. Allen goes into the finals of the Northstar Nationals for the 3rd consecutive year. 7.57 seconds. His speed, 183 miles an hour. The next pair of cars beginning their burnouts. This is Bob Glidden at the wheel of the Thunderbird. That number 1 on the window of that Ford indicates he finished in the top spot in the World Championship chase last year. Here, the number 2 on the side of the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson indicates he finished 2nd to Glidden in the World Championship points chase. Let's go to Steve.
Well, Bruce Allen has been telling us the last few races he's been practicing his driving. A magnificent hole shot, only 300ths off the light, and a nice 757 to go with it.
Yeah, it was a little slippery out there that time for us, a little shaking and a little spinning going on, but getting down here first is the most important thing, and just glad we could do that.
And this Beretta is still relatively a new car.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice car. So Chevrolet here is coming around pretty good for us, so we're real happy with it. Our engine's running good. We've got lots of power here. We've been working pretty hard, and just got one other guy out here that seems to be showing us up.
A guy in a Ford.
Yeah, I think it's red and white.
I think it is. Let's have a look and see how he does in the semis.
Steve, it's not hard to miss the red and white T-Bird in the far lane. Warren Johnson wishes he may have been able to avoid him, but he can't as they're racing each other here in the semifinals. Bob Glidden, Warren Johnson. The winner earns the right to race Bruce Allen for the championship. A great start. Identical reaction times for both drivers. And it's Bob Glidden by just a couple of inches. Glidden defeats Warren Johnson. Identical elapsed times. 7.58 seconds at 184 miles an hour. Look how close this is. Glidden actually had the advantage off the starting line by only 5 thousandths of a second. As they came down the track, it was side by side. The Ford in the far lane, the Oldsmobile in the near lane, as close as you could ask for. As they approached the finish line, the electronic judge was waiting. 1,320 feet away from the starting line, Bob Glidden gets there first. That's how close it was. 7:58, identical elapsed times. Johnson off the mark on speed by only 2 miles an hour. Bob Glidden goes into the finals to race Bruce Allen, but by virtue of the quicker ET, Bruce Allen will have the lane choice in the last round. The final rounds coming up next here at Brainerd. Quaker State Northstar Nationals, 1 race remains in each of our 3 pro categories. In Pro Stock Eliminator, number 1, the man that has won more national event titles than any other racer in history, Bob Glidden, goes off against Bruce Allen. The interesting thing about Glidden, his car is crew chiefed by his wife, Etta. Earlier, Steve talked with her.
Everybody who follows drag racing, even in the slightest, knows the contributions that this lady, Etta Glidden, makes to her husband's many world championships in pro stock. But I would like to know the many faces of Etta Glidden. What else do you do? What other interests do you have?
Well, I have a lot of interests. I like to cook. I like to read, and I'm not particular about what I read. I read about anything. I just enjoy reading. I bowl.
For your own sanity.
Yes, for your own sanity.
When you take some time away, sometimes you come back with a little fresher look.
I think so, yes. You get a little fresher outlook on what you're doing and what you're supposed to be doing. You know, there's so much that has to be done that sometimes you lose sight of what you're really doing at the moment.
Neither of these two men are losing sight of what they're doing this moment. They're racing in the finals of Pro Stock Eliminator. Bruce Allen in the far lane in the Chevy, the Ford in the near lane, and Bob Glidden. Bruce Allen with the advantage off the starting line. And Glidden's car begins to smoke. Bruce Allen with the upset win. Allen in the new Chevy Beretta takes home the title. 7.53 seconds. His speed, 183 miles an hour. Our slow motion replay shows you the advantage that Bruce Allen built up off the starting line, nearly 200ths of a second. It was close for a while, and then problems began to set in for Bob Glidden. The problems indicated by the smoke pouring out from the back of the T-Bird. That let Bruce Allen pull ahead. He stayed ahead and crossed the finish line, the big winner.
The crowd, Bruce Allen, is still roaring. They sense the resurgence of Chevrolet and Pro Stock. What a victory for you. What a leave off the starting line.
I can't tell how happy I am for Chevrolet, Levi Garrett, Buddy and Dave. All the guys at the shop, we've been working hard. I mean, this is great. I'm the happiest guy you've ever seen.
As always, Bruce Allen and the low-key approach to victory. Funny car eliminator, John Force in the near lane, Kenny Bernstein in the far lane. Very close in their elapsed time performance throughout this event. Bernstein, by just a few hundredths of a second, won the lane choice, and he took the lane the furthest from the camera. The final staging procedures for the day for these two racers, and a great start by Bernstein. Bernstein thunders through the quarter mile. His elapsed time, 5.60 seconds. His speed, 264 miles an hour. In replay, you can see Bernstein gaining a bit of a whole shot advantage over Force. Very quickly, the horsepower of Bernstein's car comes into play. He pulls ahead of John Force, and as they cover the last half of the quarter mile, Bernstein continues to extend his lead until he crosses the finish line in victory.
560 to a 64.
Oh, that was a good race. I knew it would be. Again, Dale and the guys, they did it. They're great.
This has been a special racetrack for you. A few years ago, it got you on the winning track.
You know, Steve, really, probably the honest truth is, when we came here and won, and we weren't qualified for that Bud shootout that weekend, okay? Yeah. That was probably started the Budweiser King on its roll for what we've been lucky enough to be fortunate the last 3 years, right here.
Okay, a special man, Kenny Bernstein, headed for what may be his third, probably will be his third World Championship.
One race remains. We'll be right back with the Top Fuel Final.
To Joe Amato, this isn't a quarter mile of road. To him, it's a battlefield. And to prepare for the fight, Joe's crew chief, Tim Richards, uses Fram oil filters that can stand up to engine-killing dirt and grit. Fram oil filters, for when the going gets tough.
This new Thunderbird intercooled turbo coupe is powered by one of the most technically sophisticated engines available. Enough said. This is the new Thunderbird intercooled turbo coupe.
Now get 1.9% financing or a $600 cash bonus on Ford Thunderbird.
Gwynn against Dan Pastorini. Gwynn starting his burnout procedure ahead of the former NFL quarterback. The crew starting Pastorini's car, and there's something wrong. It's very obvious. The engine having difficulties. Jim Brissett bent over the front of the motor. The crewman saying, wait a minute. They're looking at it. And it appears to be something is wrong. Brissett moves everybody away. And it looks like they're going to shut off the engine in Pastorini's car. That means a single run for Darrell Gwynn. He automatically wins the event. All he's got to do is make that pass down the racetrack. Dan Pastorini has to be disappointed as he unbuckles the safety harness and climbs out of the tight confines of that cockpit of the Top Fuel dragster. Darrell Gwynn's got to be a happy man. He knows it is a free ride to the victory circle. With Pastorini out of competition, dejectedly sitting and watching, Darrell Gwynn streaks down track. He still thunders through with a 5:51 at only 206 miles an hour. But what a victory for the team of Kenny Bernstein and Darrell Gwynn, and what a disappointment has to be registering with Dan Pastorini. This marks the second time this season that we have seen Pastorini in the final round of an event covered here on ESPN. Earlier, it was the Winston All-Star race. And what a disappointment. We did not get to see Dan Pastorini match up against the winner, Darrell Gwynn. For Pastorini, a long, hard day of work. For Darrell Gwynn, a much sought-after and coveted victory. his second of the season. For Pastorini, his second runner-up spot this year, and a hug from his lady.
Well, today in Minnesota, you can color the winner's circle red. First Kenny Bernstein, now teammate Darrell Gwynn. Very few drivers in their careers have a single in a final round. No, they've won a race before they leave.
That's true, and these races I'm beginning to learn are a lot harder to win each and every day, and we'll take them any way we can get them. It's a big win here for me and Kenny in front of our Quaker State people, and we really enjoyed it here this weekend.
Were you aware of Pastorini's problems, or did you wait and see the single run sign from the officials?
Buster and my dad both told me that there was a single run, but I owed it to myself and the crew. They did a heck of a job all weekend, and we made some changes. We wanted to see how it did. I didn't run it all the way through, but I run it through enough to where we can tell what's going on.
And you gained some valuable points.
Yeah, that's important. Amato went out early, Aleje went out early, and no matter what, we're right in the thick of things. And, you know, we didn't...